Ladies and gentlemen, in the world of anime, there are heroes who fight with swords, and there are heroes who fight with something far more dangerous, conviction. And when we talk about conviction, we have to talk about Erwin Smith from Attack on Titan. Relentless pursuit of truth, that is the core of Erwin Smith's existence. It was never just curiosity. It was never just rebellion. It was a fire that started in childhood and refused to die, even when the world tried to bury it. As a young boy, Erwin asked a simple question about the world beyond the walls, a question that challenged the official narrative everyone else blindly accepted. Most children would have forgotten such a moment. Most would have moved on. But not Erwin. When his father was silenced for daring to think differently, that question transformed into something heavier. It became guilt. It became responsibility. It became purpose. From that moment on, truth was no longer an idea to him. It was a debt. What makes Erwin extraordinary is not that he wanted answers. Many characters in anime want answers. What makes him different is the price he was willing to pay for them. He understood something terrifying. Truth is not free. Truth demands sacrifice, and he chose to pay in advance. As he rose through the ranks of the Survey Corps, every expedition beyond the walls became more than a military mission. For Erwin, it was another step toward uncovering reality. Every formation he designed, every risky strategy he executed, every life placed on the line, all of it moved him closer to understanding the world as it truly was. But here is the emotional weight of his pursuit. Erwin knew soldiers would die following his commands. He saw their faces. He heard their screams. He watched hope disappear from their eyes. Yet he continued. Was he heartless? No. That's what makes his pursuit so powerful. He felt the burden of every death. He carried them with him. But he believed something even heavier, that living inside a lie was worse than dying for the truth. Relentless pursuit means not stopping when it becomes uncomfortable. It means continuing when doubt creeps in at night. And Erwin had doubt. There were moments when his voice trembled. Moments when his eyes revealed exhaustion. He wasn't an emotionless machine. He was a man fighting against fear, against guilt, and against the possibility that all this sacrifice might lead to nothing. And still, he moved forward. What makes his drive relatable is that it mirrors something deeply human. We all reach points in life where we sense something isn't right, a system that doesn't add up, a narrative that feels incomplete, a truth that hides behind fear. Most people choose safety. Most choose comfort. Erwin chose confrontation. He confronted a corrupt government. He challenged authority. He gambled everything on a theory that could have destroyed him. When he staged a political uprising, it wasn't for power. It wasn't for fame. It was because lies were suffocating humanity. He was willing to be labeled a traitor if it meant revealing reality. And yet, beneath all of this determination, there was a quiet, almost selfish dream. He wanted to stand in a basement and confirm that his father had been right. He wanted validation. He wanted closure. That personal desire added complexity to his pursuit. Was he fighting for humanity, or for himself? The answer is both. Relentless pursuit of truth does not require pure motives. It requires unstoppable will. Erwin understood that even if part of him sought personal confirmation, the outcome would liberate millions. Sometimes, imperfect intentions can still create historic change. His pursuit reached its peak not in discovery, but in sacrifice. When faced with the choice between achieving his dream or ensuring humanity's survival, he let go of the truth he had chased his entire life. That moment defines the word relentless in a new way. Because true pursuit is not just about chasing a goal, it's about knowing when to give yourself up for something greater. Erwin Smith did not just seek truth. He embodied the cost of it. Leadership built on sacrifice is not about standing at the front and shouting orders. It is about standing at the front knowing you may be sending people to their deaths, and carrying that weight without letting it crush your resolve. That was the kind of leader Erwin Smith chose to become. From the outside, he appeared calm, composed, almost unshakable. His voice was steady. His eyes were focused. When chaos erupted and titans tore through soldiers like paper, Erwin didn't panic. He observed. He calculated. He decided. But beneath that disciplined exterior was a man who understood the true cost of command. Every time he organized an expedition beyond the walls, he knew the numbers. He knew how many soldiers would likely not return. He knew families would lose sons and daughters. He knew dreams would be buried in unmarked graves. Yet he still led them forward. That is the paradox of his leadership. He never pretended the mission was safe. He never sold false hope. Instead, he gave his soldiers something stronger than comfort. He gave them meaning. When fear paralyzed the ranks, Erwin didn't deny reality. He reframed it. He transformed terror into purpose. He made every charge, every scream, every drop of blood part of something larger than individual survival. His speeches were not empty motivation. They were confessions wrapped in courage. When he asked his soldiers to give their hearts, he wasn't asking lightly. He was asking them to accept death as a possibility for the sake of humanity's future. And the reason they followed him was simple. He was willing to give his own heart first. True sacrifice in leadership begins with accountability. Erwin never blamed others for failure. If a strategy collapsed, the responsibility was his. If lives were lost, the burden rested on his shoulders. You could see it in his eyes after every mission, the silent acknowledgement that his decisions carried irreversible consequences. But what makes his leadership powerful is that he did not allow guilt to paralyze him. Many leaders break under pressure. They hesitate. They second guess. Erwin felt the pain, yet he continued making ruthless decisions when necessary. He understood that hesitation could cost even more lives. One of the most defining moments of his leadership was when he led a suicide charge against the Beast Titan. He knew it was almost certain death. He knew the plan was a distraction, a desperate gamble to create an opening. And still, he rode at the front of the formation. He didn't send his soldiers ahead while hiding behind safety. He rode with them. As rocks rained down and soldiers fell one by one, Erwin did not retreat. Even when fear was visible, even when his voice trembled, he continued forward. That charge wasn't about victory. It was about buying hope with their lives. Leadership built on sacrifice also means giving up personal dreams. Erwin had one lifelong goal: to confirm the truth hidden in the basement. It was the answer he had chased since childhood. When the moment came, when he stood at the edge of death and could have chosen survival to finally see that truth, he let it go. He chose humanity over himself. That decision reveals the deepest layer of his leadership. Sacrifice is not only physical. It is emotional. It is the willingness to abandon your own desires so others may live. Erwin gave up the very thing that defined him because he believed someone else could carry the mission forward. What makes this relatable is that leadership in real life often demands unseen sacrifices: sleep, comfort, recognition, sometimes even relationships. The difference is scale, not principle. Erwin represents the extreme version of a truth many understand: if you want to lead, you must be prepared to lose something. His legacy is not built on the number of titans defeated. It is built on the lives he inspired to move forward despite fear. His soldiers followed him not because he was perfect, but because he was committed. They trusted him because he never asked them to give more than he was willing to give himself. Erwin Smith proved that true command is not about authority. It is about sacrifice that runs so deep, it becomes the foundation upon which hope stands. The burden behind the commander's smile is what truly defines Erwin Smith as more than just a strategist or a fearless leader. From a distance, his expression often appeared confident: calm eyes, composed posture, a slight, controlled smile that reassured everyone around him. To his soldiers, that smile meant stability. It meant someone was in control. It meant hope. But that smile was armor. Behind it lived a storm of doubt, guilt, ambition, and fear. Erwin understood that a leader cannot afford visible hesitation. The moment doubt spreads through the ranks, morale collapses. So he carried his uncertainty alone. Every risky formation, every gamble with human lives, every battlefield loss added weight to his conscience. Yet he never allowed that weight to distort the image he projected. He smiled not because he was free from fear, but because others needed him to look fearless. The burden began long before he became commander. As a child, after his father's death, Erwin internalized guilt. He believed his curiosity may have contributed to that tragedy. That belief planted something heavy inside him, the idea that his desire for truth cost lives. As he grew older, that guilt evolved. Now, instead of one life, dozens, sometimes hundreds, were lost under his command. Imagine carrying that silently. After every expedition beyond the walls, when the surviving soldiers returned broken and exhausted, Erwin stood tall. He delivered reports. He discussed strategy. He prepared for the next mission. But in quieter moments, you could see it, the flicker in his eyes, the pause in his breathing. He remembered every fallen soldier. He remembered their faces when they saluted him. Leadership isolated him. The higher he rose, the fewer people he could speak to honestly. A commander cannot collapse in front of his troops. He cannot openly confess that he is afraid of being wrong. He cannot admit that part of his motivation might be personal rather than purely noble. So Erwin locked those thoughts inside. His smile became a symbol, but also a mask. One of the most powerful aspects of his burden was the internal conflict between selfish desire and collective duty. He wanted to prove his father's theory true. He wanted validation. He wanted to stand in that basement and finally confirm that his life's obsession was justified. That dream drove him forward. But every time soldiers died following his orders, a question echoed inside him: am I doing this for humanity, or for myself? That question is heavier than any battlefield wound. What makes his burden relatable is that many people hide their struggles behind composure. Leaders in any environment, whether in school, work, or family, often feel they must appear strong at all times. They swallow stress. They hide fear. They present confidence even when they feel uncertain. Erwin embodies that emotional isolation at an extreme level. There are moments when his smile fades slightly, when exhaustion surfaces. In those rare instances, we glimpse the human behind the commander, a man who is tired, who questions himself, who wonders if all the sacrifice will truly matter. But even then, he regains composure. Because to him, leadership is not about personal relief. It is about responsibility. The heaviest part of his burden appears when he faces death. As he lies wounded and drifting between consciousness and unconsciousness, his childhood dream resurfaces. Not glory, not victory, just a classroom, just a question. That quiet memory reveals how long he carried the weight of unfinished truth. Yet even in that fragile state, he does not beg for survival. He does not demand to see the basement. Instead, he allows himself to be chosen for sacrifice. In that decision, the burden finally lifts, not because he achieves his dream, but because he entrusts it to someone else. The commander's smile was never about arrogance. It was about shielding others from despair. It was about absorbing fear so others could move forward. And that is what makes his character so powerful. Behind the calm exterior stood a man who carried unbearable weight, yet never let it break the formation. Erwin Smith's true strength was not the strategies he created, but the emotional weight he endured without ever asking for sympathy. Choosing humanity over personal dreams is the final and most heartbreaking layer of Erwin Smith's character. For most of his life, everything he did was connected to one quiet, persistent goal: reaching the basement and uncovering the truth his father once spoke about. That dream wasn't loud or glamorous. It wasn't about power or recognition. It was about confirmation. It was about proving that his father had been right, and that his death had meaning. That dream shaped every decision he made. Every mission beyond the walls, every political risk, every calculated sacrifice pushed him closer to that locked basement door. It became the symbol of his entire existence. If the truth was there, then all the bloodshed would be justified. If it wasn't, then everything, every fallen soldier, would feel unbearably heavy. But destiny placed him in a cruel position. When the decisive battle arrived, when humanity stood on the edge of extinction, Erwin was forced to confront a reality he had long avoided. He could not have both his dream and humanity's survival. One had to be sacrificed. In that moment, the child inside him resurfaced, the boy raising his hand in a classroom, asking forbidden questions. The boy who lost his father because he dared to think differently. That boy wanted answers more than anything. He wanted to walk down those stairs. He wanted to see what was hidden. But the commander standing on the battlefield understood something greater. He understood that leadership sometimes demands the ultimate surrender, not of life alone, but of desire. The choice he faced was deeply human. It wasn't between good and evil. It was between self and sacrifice. And what makes this moment powerful is that he hesitated. He didn't instantly become heroic. He struggled. He questioned himself. He admitted that part of his motivation had always been selfish. That honesty makes his decision real. When he chose to lead the suicidal charge, he was not just charging toward death. He was charging away from his dream. He was letting go of the one thing that had driven him since childhood. That is far more painful than dying. Because dying can be instant. Letting go of a lifelong purpose is something else entirely. By choosing to give his life so another soldier could defeat the enemy, Erwin ensured humanity's survival would continue without him. He accepted that someone else would uncover the truth. Someone else would open the basement. Someone else would see what he had sacrificed. Everything to reach. And he would never know the answer. That is the depth of his choice. Many people chase personal dreams their entire lives. Career goals, recognition, validation, closure, these ambitions define identity. Erwin's dream was his identity. Without it, who was he? Yet in the final moment, he proved that identity can evolve. He allowed himself to become something larger than his own desire. Choosing humanity over personal dreams is not about abandoning ambition. It is about understanding priority. Erwin recognized that his individual satisfaction meant nothing if humanity perished. Truth could wait, survival could not. There is also tragedy in this choice. He spent years convincing others to sacrifice their dreams for the greater good. In the end, he demonstrated that he was not exempt from that rule. He demanded from himself what he demanded from others. When he raised his hand one last time before the charge, it symbolized the merging of two versions of himself, the curious child and the resolute commander. In that gesture, he accepted that he would never see the outcome. And yet, he moved forward anyway. That is what makes his character unforgettable. He did not achieve his dream. He did not witness the truth he chased. But by choosing humanity first, he ensured that someone else could. And sometimes, the greatest victory is not reaching the destination, it is making sure the journey continues without you. Erwin Smith's story is not just about battles, titans, or military strategy. It is about the unbearable weight of leadership, the dangerous beauty of chasing truth, and the silent sacrifices made by those who choose responsibility over comfort. He teaches us that real strength is not measured by physical power, but by conviction. Not by survival, but by what you are willing to give up so others can move forward. He pursued truth even when it cost him everything. He led soldiers into hell while carrying guilt in his heart. He smiled to give others courage while hiding his own doubts. And when the moment came, he abandoned his lifelong dreams so humanity could have a future. That is what makes him unforgettable. Erwin Smith proves that sometimes the greatest heroes are not the ones who live to see victory, but the ones who sacrifice their dreams so victory becomes possible. And in the end, he didn't just give his life for humanity, he gave his heart to the truth, and trusted the future to finish what he started.